Superfoods. The word sounds powerful, almost mythical. Like somewhere on Earth there are secret foods with extraordinary abilities. Foods that make people healthier, stronger, smarter, maybe even help them live longer. Blueberries, kale, salmon, avocados. The promise is everywhere. But here's the strange part. There is no official scientific definition of a superfood. None. Scientists don't classify foods as superheroes. And yet some foods genuinely stand out. Not because they're magical, but because their stories are. Stories of survival, evolution, migration, and thousands of years of human history. Today we're separating science from marketing. And by the end, you may discover that some of the world's most impressive foods aren't rare at all. They're probably sitting in your kitchen already. What is a superfood? Here's the first surprise. Nutrition doesn't work like comic books. There isn't one food that saves the day. No berry can replace sleep. No vegetable can replace exercise. No fish can erase years of unhealthy habits. That's why scientists usually don't treat superfood as a precise scientific category. Instead, they focus on nutrient density. How many beneficial nutrients a food provides relative to its calories? Some foods simply provide an unusually high concentration of beneficial nutrients. But context matters. The healthiest dietary patterns in the world aren't built around a single ingredient. They're built around habits, meals repeated over years, small choices made consistently. That's why the foods in this video matter. Not because they're perfect, but because they've earned their reputations through centuries of human use. Kale, the king that never asked for a crown. Kale wasn't born in a smoothie. It wasn't invented by influencers. And it certainly wasn't designed for social media. Long before wellness culture existed, kale was a hardy crop used in parts of Europe through colder seasons and difficult growing conditions. It wasn't glamorous, but it was dependable. When temperatures dropped, kale often survived. When other crops struggled, kale frequently continued growing. That resilience made it valuable for generations. Eventually, the modern world rediscovered kale. Suddenly, it appeared in restaurants, juice bars, health magazines. The same plant that once filled farm kitchens became a symbol of wellness culture. Nutritionally, kale genuinely deserves attention. It's rich in vitamin K, provides vitamin C, contains fiber, and delivers a variety of nutrients while remaining relatively low in calories. But perhaps kale's most interesting lesson isn't nutritional, it's historical. Sometimes humanity spends centuries overlooking something useful, then suddenly acts as if it has discovered something entirely new. Blueberries, millions of years in a handful. A blueberry doesn't look particularly impressive. It's small, fragile, easy to overlook, but appearances can be deceptive. Imagine finding blueberries in a forest thousands of years ago, long before supermarkets or nutrition labels existed. To humans, they're food. To the plant, they're part of a survival strategy. Like all plants, blueberries survive through biology and chemistry, rather than movement. Over millions of years, evolution shaped compounds that help plants respond to environmental challenges. Some of those compounds create the deep blue pigments blueberries are famous for. Scientists have spent decades studying these pigments, called anthocyanins, not because blueberries are magical, but because they offer insight into how plants evolved and how colorful fruits fit into healthy dietary patterns. Millions of years of experimentation packed into something small enough to fit on your fingertip and sweet enough to put on pancakes. Broccoli, the most underrated vegetable. Few vegetables have a worse reputation than broccoli, which is unfortunate because broccoli is one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables found in many supermarkets. It provides fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, folate, and compounds called glucosinolates that researchers continue studying today. Now imagine something strange. If broccoli looked like brightly colored candy, people might view it very differently. Instead, it resembles a tiny tree, and somehow that's enough to make generations suspicious. The irony is almost funny, because while people searched for distant nutritional secrets, broccoli simply sat there, quietly doing its job. The lesson isn't really about broccoli, it's about human nature. We're naturally attracted to novelty. But sometimes the most valuable foods are the ones we've been walking past all along. Salmon, the impossible journey. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, a salmon begins a journey that sounds impossible. It leaves the open sea, finds the mouth of a river, turns upstream, and begins swimming toward the place where its life began. For some salmon species, the journey can stretch hundreds of miles inland. Many stop feeding as they return to spawn. Instead, they rely on stored energy while fighting against moving water every step of the way. Scientists continue studying how salmon navigate these migrations. What we do know is this: the journey is brutal. Many never finish it, yet generation after generation, salmon continue making the attempt. It's one of the most remarkable migrations in the natural world. And somehow most people only know salmon as something served with vegetables and lemon. Today, salmon is widely valued because it provides high-quality protein and omega-3 fatty acids. But the science isn't what makes salmon unforgettable. The story is, because every salmon represents determination on a scale most humans will never experience. Avocado, an ancient fruit with a mysterious past. The avocado is one of the strangest fruits on earth. Not because of its taste, not because of its popularity. Because of its seed. It's enormous, far larger than the seeds found inside most fruits people eat today. And for years, that raised an interesting question. Why would evolution produce a fruit with such a massive seed? One proposed explanation points toward the distant past, back to a world filled with giant animals, giant ground sloths, gomphotheres, and other large mammals that once roamed the Americas. Some researchers have suggested that these animals may have helped disperse avocado seeds across the landscape. If true, avocados could be an example of what scientists sometimes call an evolutionary anachronism, a species that appears adapted to ecological relationships that have largely disappeared. The idea remains debated, but it highlights something fascinating. Nature often carries traces of ancient worlds. And whether or not those extinct giants played a major role, one thing is certain. Human cultivation later became central to the avocado's global spread. Today, avocados are eaten across much of the world. The trend feels modern. The fruit isn't. Humans have been eating avocados for thousands of years, long before social media, long before wellness brands, long before anyone called them a superfood. Walnuts. When humans look for patterns, look closely at a walnut. The resemblance is difficult to ignore. Two hemispheres, deep folds, wrinkled surfaces. It looks surprisingly similar to a human brain. And people noticed that centuries ago. Across different periods of history, people often searched for meaning in nature. Some believed that the appearance of a plant revealed something about its purpose. Today, scientists don't evaluate foods that way. Nature isn't sending hidden messages through shapes and appearances. But the story remains fascinating because it reveals something deeply human, our tendency to search for patterns, to connect observations, to build explanations. And for generations, people looked at walnuts and saw themselves. Ironically, modern nutrition eventually found legitimate reasons to appreciate walnuts, not because they resemble brains, but because they provide healthy unsaturated fats, fiber, and a variety of nutrients. Sometimes history changes, the value remains. Eggs, hero, villain, hero again. Few foods have experienced a reputation journey quite like eggs. For generations, eggs were viewed as one of nature's most complete foods. Simple, affordable, widely available. Then came controversy, because egg yolks contain cholesterol. As scientists work to better understand the relationship between dietary cholesterol, blood cholesterol, and heart disease, eggs became the center of one of nutrition's biggest debates. Public opinion shifted repeatedly. Some people embraced eggs, others avoided them. Meanwhile, the egg itself remained exactly the same. And that's what makes this story so interesting. It's really not about eggs, it's about science. Scientific understanding evolves as new evidence emerges. Today, eggs can be part of a balanced diet for many people. They provide high-quality protein along with nutrients such as choline, vitamin B12, selenium, and several other vitamins and minerals. But perhaps their most important lesson isn't nutritional, it's intellectual. Knowledge evolves, and sometimes getting closer to the truth means admitting yesterday's understanding wasn't the complete picture. Beans, the most underrated food on Earth. If a team of nutrition scientists were asked to help feed billions of people using affordable, widely available foods, beans would be difficult to ignore, not because they're glamorous, quite the opposite. Beans are ordinary, and that's exactly what makes them extraordinary. For thousands of years, civilizations across the world relied on them. Across multiple continents and cultures, different societies repeatedly discovered the same thing. Beans worked. They stored well, traveled well, fed large populations, and provided a valuable combination of protein, fiber, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. Even today, legumes are commonly emphasized in dietary patterns, often associated with healthy aging, including those frequently discussed in blue zone communities. And maybe that's the biggest surprise of this entire video. When people imagine superfoods, they often picture something rare, something expensive, something imported from the other side of the planet. But history tells a different story. Again and again, humanity's most successful foods turn out to be surprisingly simple. The foods that survive generation after generation. The foods families trusted long before advertising existed. Beans may never become fashionable, but few foods have earned their reputation more honestly. Health has never been particularly interested in secrets. It prefers consistency. The truth behind most so-called superfoods is less dramatic than the marketing suggests. There is no miracle berry, no magical vegetable, no single ingredient capable of transforming a life. What exists instead are foods that earned their place through centuries of reliability, foods that became part of healthy dietary traditions around the world. Maybe that's why the most remarkable foods don't always look remarkable. They're familiar, ordinary, easy to overlook. Yet behind every blueberry, every salmon, every bean, lies a story that stretches back through evolution, agriculture, and human history. The greatest foods on Earth aren't extraordinary because they're rare. They're extraordinary because they've stood the test of time. And the real superpower was never hidden inside a single food. It was hidden inside the choices repeated across a lifetime.